see the most far-reaching and detailed investigation of the many allegations of corruption and scandals leveled against public officials and their families and friends. This change will help to abort this administration's plan to foist the pliant vice president on us, to cover up for them, and thereby escape the searing scrutiny of accountability. But as I have stated, this hot spotlight of accountability is reserved not only for appointees of this administration, it will also be available to sanctioned persons in my own administration who engage in similar conduct. The same anti-corruption strategies and instruments I shall deploy to measure and punish the MPP government appointees will also be applicable to my own appointees. In short, in Ghanaian parlance, Aba Yadebo Techino, Yadebebo Banso. My dear youth, the best of Ghana is yet to come, and I have hope for the future, particularly as I return to the presidency as the experienced, visionary, and decisive leader ready to build the Ghana we want together with you. The Electoral Commission has decided to conduct a mop-up voter registration exercise between 1st August to 3rd August, realizing that many could not participate in the just completed limited registration exercise. I still do not understand why the Electoral Commission in cahoots with government insists it will not bring the voters' registration centers to the doorstep of the people as much as possible in order that all of you can have the opportunity to.
Despite the ugly noises, the fight against corruption has been the cornerstone of my administration. With a clear understanding that corruption thrives in an atmosphere conducive to its concealment, and that access to information is a vital tool in the fight against corruption. My government in its first term ensured the passage of the Right to Information Act, 2019 Act 989, in order to give true meaning and effect to Article 21, Clauses 1F of the Constitution. The Act, which successive governments have failed to pass, sees to the implementation of the constitutional right to information held by a public institution to foster a culture of transparency and accountability in public affairs, subject to exemptions, necessary and consistent with the protection of the public interest in a democratic society. The Act is now being fully implemented, with the governing board chaired by an experienced and respected retired High Court judge. The Ministry of Information has trained information officers in various ministries, departments, and agencies of government to support the full application of the law. Administratively, a series of other far-reaching measures have been undertaken by my government to help in the fight against corruption. A memorandum of understanding on information exchange and collaboration in combating corruption and crime in general has been signed by SRAJ, IYOCO, Parliament, the Office of the Attorney General, the Audit Service, the Police Service, the Financial Intelligence Center, the Narcotics Control Commission, the Internal Audit Agency, the National Investigations Bureau, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor to this end. The use of technology has been pivotal in our efforts to combat corruption. We have introduced digital platforms for public procurement processes, reducing human intervention and minimizing the opportunities for corrupt practices. These platforms have increased transparency, efficiency, and competitiveness in public procurement, ensuring that public resources are judicially used for the benefit of all Ghanaians. Before I conclude, Madam Chief Justice, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we are all aware of the statement by the former president and perennial NDC presidential candidate, John Dramani Mahama, stigmatizing me as the clearing agent Because for him, mere allegation without more is enough to merit condemnation of an accused public official, especially one of my administration. For my part, and let me state it again for the record, I will not set aside due process and the rules of natural justice on the altar of the fight against corruption, no matter how much opprobrium this position incurs for me.
Right. Welcome back. And so, Mary, let's begin with you on the question of political graft. And we are deliberate in not saying just corruption, but political graft. And when you check by dictionary definition, it simply will mean the corrupt and illegal use of political power or influence for personal gain, typically involving bribery, embezzlement, or other forms of corruption. It involves the abuse of office or authority for private benefit and can take many forms: bribery, embezzlement, kickbacks, nepotism, patronage, influence peddling, conflict of interest, using political power, among other things. And we know that political graft undermines trust in government, distorts policy decisions, and can lead to economic and social inequality. It is often accompanied by other forms of corruption, such as money laundering, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Brings me to my question I've been asking myself. We want to fight corruption, and we don't give the OSP the power to fight money laundering. What were we doing with that law? Yes, Mary, let's hear you. The president says he won't do these things without evidence. So all the claims you, civil society, have been making that he's not acting, you are wrong.
Something that's interesting. If the president says we are wrong, then we need to also say the president is wrong in his assumptions that he's been fighting corruption or he's been fighting political graft since he took office. I say so because the evidence is what we speak to. We do not just conjecture. And so if you look at 2017, when the government took office, if you look at some of the surveys and studies that were conducted at the time, the people of Ghana believed hook, line, and sinker the manifesto projections and promises the president had made. And then during his induction as president, I remember he clearly also committed and spoke to the fact that all his appointees would do the right thing by the people of Ghana, and that if you were seeking to make money, then rethink and go to the private sector, because that was where profit is made. However, the essence of serving the public is to ensure that we promote the public good, deliver the best quality of service to the people, and not to steal, not to receive kickbacks, not to embezzle, and not to flout the power the people have given to the appointees in their faces. This, I must say, that this promise we picked so hook, line, and sinker has diminished. So if you look at a study like the ASO barometer, in the round 7, the trust of the people of Ghana that this government will fight graft was over 70%. Something, as the years have gone by, trust has dwindled till now we have about 35. And that is more than half of the people saying that what is being done is not commensurate, or what we have achieved is not commensurate to the promises the president made to the people of Ghana. The CPI, that's the Corruption Perception Index, had the highest score for this country in 2014. That's 48 out of 100 clean score. However, I must say that from there in 2015, we lost one, and in 2016, we went to 43. In 2017, we came to 40, the lowest since 2014. And so if we are talking about the highest score when it comes to the fight against corruption per the CPI, it was achieved in 2014. The lowest score was in 2017. I'm talking about if we check it from 2014. And then for the past 4 years, we have stagnated at 43 and not made any significant move. Let me quickly add here that in studies and analysis we have done, nations which have stuck in the same realm and not made progress over time have seen a continuous dwindle. And we are praying that that is not what we will see. Let me say again that some of the things the president promised, admittedly, they have done. But those do not show in the fight against corruption, or they do not reflect in action. So if we say we are passing a law, like the president eloquently put, he has passed the RTI law, he has passed the Office of the Special Prosecutor law, they have passed the Witness Protection Act. There is supposed to be the activation of that law with an office that is supposed to ensure that witness protection is one of the key issues when it comes to the fight against corruption. Unfortunately, we do not have that. In the Open Government Partnership NAP4, that's the National Action Plan 4, it was put there as one of the commitments. It has not been passed. Again, in NAP5, we have put it in. I am not sure if within the 4 years we would get it passed. Then we come again to say that what we are saying per the evidence does not portend well for us, because we continue to see public officers and politically exposed persons who have been given the mandate to rule this nation carrying on flagrantly exhibiting wealth that we cannot testify as to where they are coming from. We see allegations of bribery, and I can mention some of them. We have done the Public Procurement Act 1, where influence peddling, where kickbacks happen, where we use nepotism to get all sorts of things done. We have seen cash for seats, which hasn't come to anything. We have seen the biggest one, which has been done in the way the president has occasioned the name the clearing agent. Because in Cecilia Dapa's instance, everything that has happened shows or is significant, because it again shows that the president, even before investigations were done, when the lady resigned, the president clearly indicated that he trusts the lady and he knows she would be cleared, or at the end of the investigation, she would stand tall. And it has happened. What do you expect the public officer who is holding office at your behest to do? So it is not surprising that the SP, the Yoko, and all others are doing a revolving cycle and running and doing a merry-go-round around these issues when we know a lot more could have been done. The president talks about digitalization and digitizing and promoting e-governance and others. We continue to say that in the fight against corruption, we have seen that in the digitization drive, and when you even go back, recount back to when Atamo was president, His Excellency, you would realize that he went to the port, and one of the complaints was all the things they were doing were being discounted by the public officials who were there. And because something we do not see sanctioning in proper investigations and sanctioning accompanying some of these, but then we see the politicization and excessive politicization at that, and protecting persons who have political interests, who have turned themselves into businessmen because they have promoted the interests of parties and perhaps maybe funded them, then we cannot but say that the president has done very little in the fight against corruption, because laws in themselves do not fight. Because the commitment of the leadership to show that this fight is one that we need to achieve is what we are looking at. The laws must be supported to be fought. The laws must be activated to ensure that people are doing the right things. And if they are not doing the right things, the appointing authorities must be held accountable. But when we see that it is only the small fishes who are being accounted for, but when it comes to bigger issues such as the Cecilia Dapas, the La Biancas of our time and others, and nothing is done, then we cannot say otherwise. Civil society is talking penny evidence of what the president told us in his inaugural speech. He said he will use the Annas principle, and he will not need much evidence to ensure that he fights corruption. What happened since then? That is the question the president should be asking himself.
But the president must be law-abiding. If he must take steps to steps that can compromise people's liberty, people's reputations. You mentioned the PPA matter, contracts for sale. The president acted. Immediately asked the man to step aside. While Shraj investigated and confirmed that he had done wrong, he got dismissed, correct? He's also being prosecuted. I think that's the kind of situation the president is asking for. CSOs supported Manasseh in that kind of investigation. That's the Annas principle. Then he got the information, concrete evidence of a man who has been put in charge of the Public Procurement Authority abusing that power for his personal and private gain. Unfortunate though that in the process, the monies that were, as it were, put on ice by the authorities, eventually someone looked somewhere and he's managed to take his monies away. So there's actually nothing. He's just been dismissed and that's it. So that's what he's talking about. Where there's no evidence, you don't expect the president to, what do you expect him to do where there's no evidence?
Something. There must always be a starting point. And we all understand that the issues around corruption are difficult to determine because these are either done in collusion or the victims are reluctant to speak because they will be vilified. And that is what has happened in this country. People who have tended to speak the truth are either not getting their businesses going on or the contracts which used to come to them do not come anymore. And so that is why we are holding the president to his promise that he will use the Annas principle or he will use investigative journalists to uncover some of the supporting evidence that is supposed to help us to fight corruption.
Okay.
And we are not saying the president should just hear people being allegations, being put against people and then he's sacking them. We are saying the president, in the interim, should usually have these people step aside, number one, and then investigate, like he did in the Public Procurement Act, which has not been the common.
Yeah, when Charles Edubuahin, when Anas did the story about Charles Edubuahin's involvement in something that was potentially criminal, he sacked him. When the guy didn't resign, he sacked him. But you hold on for me. Let me come to Sule. And often the president has said that his government has funded the anti-corruption agencies the most. There's something curious I have recognized when he speaks. He doesn't refer to the OSP. Mm-hmm. He will talk to all the others that he has funded, but he doesn't mention the OSP. And these entities already have been established. They have their equipment and tools to work with. The OSP, a new office that needs more, appears not to have what it has to get. But EOCO, economic crimes, we talk about OSP more than we talk about Yoko. Meanwhile, they are supposed to be fighting the biggest corruption. The Attorney General's Department, they are actually an anti-corruption organization because all the crimes about corruption, that's their job. Yoko, they have some limitation. OSP has such a big limitation, only limited to matters of procurement and so to speak. So what do you say? He says his government, the cornerstone of his government has been corruption. Fighting corruption has been the cornerstone of my administration. That's what he's been saying. And guess what? He was saying this at the event to commission the Law House, magnificent edifice for the Attorney General to help them to do this job of fighting corruption.
Well, Samson, of course, I don't expect the president to say that I have failed in the fight against corruption, given that corruption consistently has been the biggest campaign issue within in elections within this our fourth republic, whether from Kufuor's time to Atamilsa's time, Mohammed's time, to Nana Akufo-Addo's time. I think all the political parties have always flagged the issues of corruption, and in every election, the opposition would flag the high levels of corruption in the government, and the government of the day will be defending itself about how it has been fighting corruption. In the case of the President Akufo-Addo government, I think that it is important to rely on independent surveys, independent publications, rather than what the NDC would say or what the president himself will say. I think Mary alluded to quite a number of them, the Corruption Perception Index. And the record now is that the worst performance under the Mahama regime remains the best performance in President Akufo-Addo's time, which is 43, a score of 43 over 100. And that was the lowest during the period of President Mahama. We may say that, well, there could be some questions about the CPI. And so we come home on the continent, and then we can look at what Afrobarometer data is saying. And Afrobarometer data has consistently also affirmed what the CPI is saying in terms of the people's views about the levels of corruption. In 2016, for example, when Afrobarometer did the publication, 2017, the first year of the government, it was said that 6 out of 10 were saying that, in terms of corruption, the government is doing fairly well or well. And only at that time, just about 1 in 10 would say that the government was not doing well. Down to 2022, and the trend has changed. 85%, and that's almost 9 out of 10, are saying that the government is doing very badly when it comes to corruption. It doesn't end there. They proceed to look at what are the institutions that you see as the most corrupt. They put the Ghana Police Service on number 1, and quite significantly, the Office of the President as number 2, in terms of the institutions that they perceive to be corrupt. And then you come to Parliament. Honorable Husseini's former workplace. And then judges and magistrates follow next. And so you look at it, and apart from the police, all the 3 arms of government are perceived by the people to be very corrupt or doing badly when it comes to corruption. But for me, what is significant is that take out the police and then look at only the 3 arms of government, and the people of Ghana are saying that the number 1 place is the Office of the Presidency. And for me, that is quite bad enough. But my point is, this whole thing about clearing agents, why did we get to that point? Because I would assume that if you are a leader and you say you want to fight corruption, the fighting against corruption is not the job of the president. Really. Why is the police there? Yoko is there. Shraj is there. The NIB is there. All the investigative bodies are there. So at what point did we come to that point where whether the fight against corruption is succeeding or not, is the president. And I think that the president, by his conduct, by his pronouncements, and of course by his actions, obvious and those that people know, realized that or came to the point where people feel, well, even if the president is not involved, or the president is the police that is investigating, or the attorney general, or IOCO, or whatever, there is some implications when it comes to the president's attitude and his conduct. So, for example, you look at SML, the recent SML case. You commission an audit. The audit comes, and clearly, there are a series of procurement infractions. The audit says performance was even not satisfactory. Partial fulfillment of this, partial fulfillment of that, and so on and so forth. I think that the president should be questioning, but who was there who was awarding these contracts without PPA approval for 6 times? And of course, if it involves the Ministry of Finance.
Without PPA approval for 3 times or 6?
No, if you look at it, no, you check the report. You check the report.
No, I remember 3 occasions.
Yes.
And on all these 3 occasions,
yes,
they were actually under the name SME.
Yes.
Then they went and changed their name to SML.
Yes.
And then came and got a subcontract.
Okay.
From that subcontract, then later, they got the main contracts and got PPA to ratify the contracts that PPA had decided not to approve.
Yes, but well, I'll have to look at it again. But I believe there are a list of this without PPA approval, that without PPA approval, and when counted, it's about 6.
Okay.
But even if it is 3, the question would be, as a leader who criticized the previous administration about sole sourcing, for example, and procurement deals, and that corruption was happening so much within the procurement arena. And what you would do is to ensure that this whole practice of sole sourcing or single sourcing thing would be a thing of the past.
Yeah, they actually say it was like a crime.
Exactly. And here we are talking about the same methodology or method being used to award contracts, and even in that case, no PPA approvals. But then it goes on and on and on and on. And at the end of the day, the president says, well, the upstream petroleum and minerals, whatever, that one has not started, so it should, whatever. And the contract should be renegotiated, without anything about, but who were those who committed these infractions? If you are acting on my behalf, I'm the leader of the country, and I'll put you there to act on my behalf. And whatever you do, there are ramifications and implications on my image, my reputation, and so on and so forth. I would think that the president will be concerned about that. But remember how Graphic reported that president's release and directives. It said PPA cleared to continue with contracts. This is our leading newspaper in this country. The question is, who cleared PPA? It's the president. Because how did Graphic read the president's release and order and directives and so on? It says it didn't only add president clears, but it said SML cleared to continue with contract. And obviously, who did the clearance? It will be the president. Now, you take the point about Cecilia Dapa that Mary was talking about. The president, in accepting the resignation, says what? I believe, like you, that at the end of the day, your integrity, while in office, will be established. And this was prior to when investigations were going to start. And something you and I know that in this country, almost everything is vested in the president. All the powers are with the president. So if you are the one to investigate this matter, it takes a lot. It would take a lot of courage for you to.
Were you pointing at me if I were the one? If I'm the one, I would listen to the president.
Well,
I'll do my job.
But I'm saying that it would take a lot of courage.
If I am a judge,
for you to do that,
I won't listen to what the president says. I'll do my judicial duty. Yeah.
And so, if the president says that, I believe that at the end of the day, just like you believe, that your integrity will be established once in office.
Unfortunately, I may not be able to hold any of these offices because they will sack me the next day.
That becomes problematic, and that is an affirmation.
Okay.
There is a whole hula baloo about Akunta mining in a forest reserve, in this country. Mr. President, you are not the Forestry Commission. You are not the Minerals Commission. You are not Environmental Protection Agency. Why are you the one to come out and tell the public that Akunta mining is not mining anywhere in this country? So I think that the president also puts himself in situations where this whole thing about clearing agent becomes something that is affirmed.
Right.
Because if a mining company is accused of mining in a forest reserve as a president, what's your business in being the one to come and say that, no, that is not happening? And when he said that this is 2023, that all 294 forest reserves have been put under guard to ensure that they are protected. Today, just a year on, these are the same forest reserves, including globally significant biodiversity areas that have been given out for mining. How do we take the president's word for it? And how do we not believe that it is the president who does this clearing when his appointees are found wanting or go contrary to...
So it doesn't matter that he says that fighting corruption has been the cornerstone of his administration. It's not actually true. And when he says that he's funded the anti-corruption organizations, entities, of course, minus OSP, better than any other government. That's a fact.
No, it's not a fact. In fact, we did a fact-checking on that.
Right.
And you see, it's only in nominal figures. So today, Shraj, if under President Kufuor, Shraj was given, let's say, 4 million Ghana cedis, and now Shraj is giving 20 million Ghana cedis. In nominal, you just look at the figures, you say, oh, somebody gave 4, I have given 20. But it's more about what could the 4 do then and what can your 5, your 20 do now? We did those, analysis, and the only institution that we could say, yes, this government has indeed funded more than any other institution was the Auditor General's office. And then we also know about what happened with Domelevo and so on and so forth. So if you fund to do the work, and then you won't allow the people to do the work, what is the essence of the funding? Of course, I would always give credit to President Akufo-Addo for and the government, his government, for the bold decision to get some of our laws in place.
Okay.
RTI, a lot of the work that we are doing on investigations and the revelations that are coming out, even though they come out and sometimes we are disappointed in the way, the government handles it. When we require that swift measures are taken and they are not taken and sanctions are imposed and they are not, and eventually it's almost that you've done the work for nothing. But it's still important because when Akufo-Addo leaves, RTI law would continue to be there for us to do the work that we are doing, for citizens to assert their right to access to information. Of course, it was under him as Attorney General that criminal libel law was repealed. I believe that even if it was Kufuor's vision, it would have taken an Attorney General to support that vision to come into fruition. The OSP, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the law setting it up, it was under him. When he leaves, I'm sure it's still...
But you in the media are not happy that even though criminal libel was repealed under his regime, in his regime as president, it's been actively used by the security agencies.
Of course.
All right. So let me get Inus Hussaini on here. And I've been reading the fact-checking that you guys did at the Media Foundation for West Africa on the president's claim that he has more than doubled the funding for the institutions. And I think for Shraj and the audit service, for example, you concluded, after you put all the figures out within a certain period, you said the John Mahama 2013-2016 and Akufo-Addo 2017-2020 governments funded Shraj with 70 million and 81 million respectively. So 70 and then 81, that's a marked improvement. Akufo-Addo's tenure increased funding allocation by 11 million, representing 16%. Then you say that the data shows that President Akufo-Addo's government increased funding to the audit service by 29% and Shraj by 16%. So when compared to the erstwhile John Mahama's tenure in 2013 to 2016, Akufo-Addo's government from 2017 to 2020 increased funding to 2 out of the 3 anti-corruption institutions, although insignificantly. However, the incumbent Akufo-Addo government within the same period, 2017-2020, reduced funding to the judicial service by 1.4% comparatively. Also, the data on finding funding to the 3 anti-corruption institutions does not support the president's claim of more than doubling funding to the institutions. It is therefore it concerns, therefore, as it concerns the audit service, judicial service, and SHRAD, President Akufo-Addo's claim of significantly increasing funding to the institutions is inaccurate, and the assertions that his government has more than double funding to them is false. Now, this is speaking to the facts. Abu Nusaf Seni.
And I also invite Media Foundation for West Africa not only to look at the allocations to the anti-corruption agencies in the budget. That can be very misleading.
The disbursement is another
thing. Go
thing.
to the exit budget.
Okay.
Akufo-Addo can tell you that in 2017, he gave 188 million Ghana cedis to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. How much was released to them? Less than a third. So if you go and
less than a third?
A third, less than a third. So if you go and say, oh, even in 2018, the Office of the Special Prosecutor was funded with 100, you will be misleading the public.
Okay, but we must state that when he makes this assertion, he does not include the Office of Special Prosecutor. He's always careful not to include it.
No, I'm talking about 20, that's why I said 2018.
Okay.
Now, so I will insist that let's always look at the exit budget. How much was released to them?
You are trained as a lawyer, you have practiced as a lawyer, and I suppose you find some time to practice today too. He's right that he can only do the corruption fight on evidence.
But the evidence is there. Truth does not fear conversation, does it? You publish the CPI, Corruption Perception Index. There's evidence that the people of this country are reflecting what they see in the Akufo-Addo's government. That there is a perception of high corruption in the system. And it didn't start yesterday. It started in 2017. If this does not worry Akufo-Addo, I don't know what will worry him. That we, the people of Ghana, are perceiving his government to be very corrupt. Is there nothing wrong with it? And he thinks that we must produce evidence before he will believe us? What about the Afro-Barometer report? Is that not evidence of something fundamentally wrong with his government? That they're saying that in 2017, 6 out of 10, 60% of Ghanaians believe that the government was taking steps to fight corruption, largely influenced by the passage of the laws. Because if you if you establish the Office of the Special Prosecutor and to deal with corruption and corruption-related offenses, and we know in Ghana, most of our corruption is procurement-related, people are entitled to believe that having set up that institution, they'll fight corruption. So they will perceive you to be taking steps to fight corruption. So 60% of Ghanaians believe that Akufo-Addo was on his way to fight corruption. Indeed, when he appointed Matt Namido, I was the first to give him credit for that, because I thought that having appointed somebody from the opposition or with opposition mentality or associated with the opposition, you were serious in fighting corruption. Well, it turned out to be false. So just like you look in the mirror and see a reflection of yourself, if you have reasons to doubt what you see in the mirror, then you are doubting yourself or your eyes. We, the people, are reflecting what we see in the Akufo-Addo. And we are not reflecting it out of vacuum. Kennedy Agyapong was the first to bring to the fore, to public notice, that before one sees the president, one has to pay gate fees. It was not us. It was a member of his party.
Before who exactly? And I suppose you may have had the privilege, like some of us, to go to the president and see the president, and you are not asked to pay any money. So where is that from?
Well, so
what class of people will be asked to bring money?
So we subsequently heard that investors and businessmen who came to this country to see the president were asked to pay some money. And this allegation was made by an investor, a potential investor. And he named the person who took him to the president or to the presidency and how he was asked to part with money.
But you would, in all conscience, and you're a very reasonable person, you are very, like he said earlier, that you can be, regardless of your political party, colours, you can deal with matters in a way that Ghanaians will embrace that even though you belong to the NDC, you are fair. Do you think the president will be aware of such a thing? That somebody is coming to his presidency as an investor and is being asked to pay him money?
I'm not saying that the president was aware. I have not said that at all.
Okay.
But I'm saying that an allegation had been made. The least the president could do. Another time, Canada Japan had not fallen out with the presidency over his candidature as a flag bearer.
No, he had issues. So he was blackmailing various people for not getting certain contracts. So he had issues.
He had issues, but he could be invited and asked. Did the president do that? I think that is the purpose of the establishment of the BNI, the Bureau of National Investigations. That you set them on the trail of fact-finding. Because if you say that people who come into your government should not come to make money, but should come for public service, you must be interested in allegations of this nature. The Australian visa case, who cleared the man? Yeah, who cleared him? Because the police never issued a report. Have you ever seen a report of the police?
No.
But it is the president who cleared him on an MPP conference platform. It's the president.
The president was acting on information that we don't have.
We should, this is what transparency and accountability is all about. The police should have issued a report clearing him so that the president will then say, well, the police have cleared him. Up to now, nobody has seen the police reports. It is the president on an MPP platform who cleared Pius Haji, and you say we shouldn't call you a clearing agent. You are reflecting what we see in you. I mean, reference is already made to Cecilia De Paz case and the love letter. I mean, if you tie the hands of the police and investigative bodies behind, what do you expect them to do? What do you expect? Akunta mining stands out in all distance. Minerals Commission and the minister acting by delegated responsibility on behalf of the president had issued letters forbidding Akunta mining to enter the Tano Numeri forest because they had not given, by the minister's letter, they had not given authorization for mining to take place in that forest, and said investigations were continuing. Who cleared Akunta mining? It's not the president. And we should not say that he's a clearing agent. No.
Okay.
It is his action. Ajapa deal. The corruption risk assessment conducted by Martin Alamise Amidu. What did he say about the president? He said that the president is the enabler of corruption in this country. And that he is the mother serpent of corruption. I didn't say it. It is his appointee who issued a corruption assessment report on a policy that was introduced by the president, but which the special prosecutor thought a corruption risk assessment must be conducted on it.
Okay.
And came to the conclusion that his office enables corruption. We shouldn't say it. We are entitled to quote the report.
All right.
Let me conclude by saying that, did you see the Auditor General's report on the utilization of the COVID funds? In fact, if you want a report on how not to use public funds to the benefit of the people of the country, go and read that report. How not to use public funds for the benefit of the people of this country. Read that report. What did the president do? They only said that the Auditor General ought not to have released the report. You remember? And that the report should have gone to the Parliament first before being released.
Parliament, both sides appear to have agreed that the health minister had not conducted himself well in respect of the COVID vaccines purchases,
Yes,
right?
yes. And we had lost a lot of money.
And the president made a comment, and he's been indicted on that one as well.
Well,
okay.
so this is,
On that note,
the last thing, yes, it's true that there's a digital platform, but the digital platform is only to enable transparency.
All right.
So what does it do? It makes us understand that now the mode of preference of awarding contracts in this country is sole sourcing. That's what the digital platform does. It doesn't fight corruption. We now know that sole sourcing is the preferred mode of contracting in this country.
We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll hear from Richard Hiagba. And I'm reminding myself that as far back as in 2019, the Afrobarometer survey had actually found that Ghanaians felt corruption had become normalized, and yet they were scared of reporting for fear of retaliation. We'll be right back.